Racism is the prejudice, discrimination, or antagonism directed against someone of a different race based on the belief that one's own race is superior. This form of discrimination has been utilized since the beginning of American colonization. However, the Civil Rights era and slavery are key events that correlate with America's early history in racism, as the country was built on the back of slaves. We can currently see today that the rise in racial tensions and the current political climate has made it a hostile environment to discuss the topic of racism.
They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists, and some, I assume, are good people.
Racism is continually projected into American society, such as police brutality or people discriminating against others in public areas. For example, there has been recent news of 2 black men sitting in Starbucks being arrested for sitting in the store itself. With that, we want to ask students and family members what they have thought on the matter of racism.
What do you think racism is?
I think racism is a discrimination against another race.
Racism is the discrimination of a person based on their skin color.
I think, in my opinion, racism is when somebody is mistreated a certain way because of their color, race, the way they speak, or the way they look.
And have you ever experienced racism in school or work?
At my work, yeah.
How did somebody be racist to you?
Because they say my English sometimes is poor and they think they are best in English. Or in my job because I'm a tailor, so they think they're better than me. So for me being Spanish, they ignore me because they think they are better than me.
Kind of, because people think that I'm like super white. And like I'm super like whitewashed and stuff because like I love Taylor Swift.
Would see me versus my coworkers who are Caucasian, they would make me feel like they would belittle me.
Okay, and how do you think racial comments can affect someone's ability to perform in life?
I think they just like, when they get so much negativity, they just give up.
It probably like puts them down and makes them feel like less of a person.
Comments can affect people because it makes them feel like they're not worth it, or because they're a certain color or race. They don't feel like they're compatible for certain jobs, or they're gonna feel like because they're not meeting because they're gonna feel like they're not meeting expectations because of their race or color.
And lastly, do you think racism still affects people today in society?
Yeah, big time, always, no matter where you are. I think it like follows you around with people. So.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely, I think it does, in my opinion. I guess the land or the area that you live in, sometimes there's going to be more of one group than the other. And I mean, sometimes, unfortunately, in society, if you are the minority, you're going to feel like the outcast.
In conclusion, we definitely think racial inequality is a disadvantage as a minority living under the American system, being more prone to discrimination that traces back to the formation of the country under colonial rule. In order to raise awareness, we had created cutout red hearts, which had the phrase, "We all bleed the same color," on them to emphasize the idea that regardless of race, sex, or gender, we are all equal and should be treated with respect and dignity. Due to the political climate and racial tensions, many groups such as Black Lives Matter have taken the streets in order to protest against racial inequalities and racial injustices. The rally should remind us all of the long-term psychological impact of racism and why it is so hard to overcome as a nation. Since the birth of America, racial bias and structural inequalities have influenced public policies and social systems, from employment, healthcare, education, and child welfare to media, food consumption, and criminal justice. The series of unarmed Black men who have died in police custody or in confrontations with law enforcement officers has renewed focus on injustices in African American communities and also Latino communities. But racial bias is affecting all communities of color, impacting our children and preventing people from contributing meaningfully to society. We must bring healing to all communities, presenting peaceful pathways to overcoming racism and divisiveness. These are examples of healing efforts around this nation, where people set aside differences to work together and address inequalities. Strengthening our nation requires a decisive commitment to healing, to eliminating racism and ultimately ensuring our children can be meaningful contributors to society.